So for today, I'm going to be talking about three things. And then if you have questions about the review, you can always ask questions. So I'll be talking about three things. Um, so only three questions, two or three questions, the final will be about what I'm going to be talking about. They ask me to cover it, just touch the service. So we're not going to go deep into the into this topic, which is the vector and then the 2D array. Only touch the service, basically how to create one, how to create a vector to the array, and also how to work with references. So let's start with the references. So I'm going to give an example to show you the impact of references. So let's start with a normal variable. Let's say we have a couple, husband and wife. They have an account. They have separate accounts. So let's say wife account. This is for the wife. And then let's say she made a deposit of $1,500. Okay. So let's also say that the husband decide to make the same amount. Whatever the wife made, he wants to make the same amount. So we're gonna do H account. Now I don't want to put 1,500. I want to say, okay, whatever the wife deposited, so I'm just gonna put W account, right? That means whatever the amount. In this case, $1,500. So if the wife she deposits $800, it's going to be $800. That means whatever the amount. It's not going to affect the wife account, but we're just copying the value, whatever the value is. So now if I print the husband account, okay, and L, and then I printed the wife account, whatever that bank account might be. So we're gonna have $1,500 each, right? So that's how much they deposited. And then remember, there are two separate accounts. Okay, so the husband has his own account, and then the wife has her own account. So as you can see right here, it says $1,500. So if any one of them make a deposit or withdrawal, it does not affect the other person. Let's do some examples. So let's say the wife account, she made also another deposit. She's a saving woman. Let's say she got $500. Okay, and then the husband happens to be like a spender, so he did exactly the opposite, which is he withdrew $500 from his account. So let me copy this and show you that it does not get affected, right? So there are two separate accounts. So how much money now do husband have? $1,500 plus or minus 500. Did he make a deposit or withdrawal? The husband.
A withdrawal.
A withdrawal. Okay. What about the wife?
A deposit.
Okay. So let's see how much money they have in their balance. So it makes sense. Do you see anything like unusual here? There's nothing different, right? Okay. Like the wife is making, her balance went up. Okay, was increased by $500, and the husband has $500 less. Okay. Now let's see the difference now. Okay. Let's say the husband said, okay, well, I spend a lot of money. And then he thought of an idea, say, well, how about having like a joint account? If I have a joint account, maybe it's gonna good for me. So what they did, okay, I'm gonna put like a little symbol here. That's for references. It's ampersand. Can you see ampersand here? So what does this ampersand means? Ampersand, for example, it refers to reference. That means now they're not separate anymore. That means the H account and the W account, they refer to the same object. That's the difference. So I did not change anything other than the ampersand. So let me run the program and see the difference. Run the program and see. What do you see? So what happened here? So we started with $1,500, right, each. Now, because $500 Okay, let me change the amount so you can see. Let's say the husband is $800. So normally, how much money should the husband have in his balance? $1,500 minus $800, that's how much? $700, right? Without using this symbol for references. So he's gonna have $700 because he spent $800, and his wife should have $2,000. But this means that the H account, the husband account, and W account, they are joined. They point to the same object. So that's what this symbol is for. If you see it, okay, it refers to the reference. So now when I run the program, it looks like they have the same account. Why? Because it's pointing to the same thing. Look, the husband who's supposed to have $700, now he has $1,200. Why? Because now they share the same account. So whenever you see this ampersand, it means that they are pointing to the same object. That means I create a variable, but it's not pointing to a different object, a different account. No, it's the same account. Whatever this one is, so they're pointing to the same object. So that's what this one. I'm going to give an example to show you the difference. So let's say we have a function. Let's say I'm going to call it function. And it accepts two variables, int x and then int y. Well, let's say a and b. Okay, a and b. So you can see the difference. Okay. Now let's say I'm going to increase a by 5. A plus equal 5. And then B, I'm going to subtract 5 to see the difference. Okay? And then I can print if I want to. I can print. I'm going to print A, and then maybe like a different space, and then B. And then maybe like and line. Okay? So pay attention here. So let me put this one as a comment so it doesn't have to be run. So I'm just going to put / asterisk. And then at the end, I'm going to do the opposites. So now the computer will just ignore this passage. So now pay attention. I'm going to create two variables. X is 10. And then Y equals 10. All right. Now I'm going to call the function, which is fun. Now I'm going to put X, comma Y. What does it mean? That means basically, okay, I'm calling this function fun. A and B. So basically A and B will be replaced by the values of X and Y. Okay, and then it will be A plus 5. That means the first number will be 5, increased by 5, 15. And then the second number will be 5, right? And then print them. Okay, so let's run the program and see. Okay, you see that? 15, 5. Now let me print X and Y. Say out, and then X, and then space, and then Y. Let's see what happened. So tell me what happened here after the execution of this. What happened? It's still 10, 10. What does it mean? That means like when you call the function A and B, they took only the copy of X and Y. It did not affect the original variable X and Y. I just borrowed 10 and 10. I give it to A and B, and then A was incremented by 5, B was decremented by 5, and then it gives me the answer inside the function. But when I go back to X and Y, it did not change. It's still 10 and 10. Okay, because they are totally different variables. I just copy the values. Now pay attention here. When I add that little asterisk, that ampersand that we talked about a few minutes later. So what's going to happen here? Now Y and B, they will point to the same thing. They share. Whatever happened to B will affect Y. Whatever happened to Y will affect B. But for A and X, that's still different. Now let me run the program and see. What happened? Did you see the difference? Now 10x, it's still separate from A, okay? I just copy the value of X, I put it to A, but it's not going to change the original variable X. But look at Y, because I put that symbol, the ampersand, so that becomes a reference. That means basically B becomes an alias. Alias, that's the term they use. It's like when you have, a person with two names. It doesn't really matter whether you call him Matthew or Matt. We're talking about the same person, okay? They just call him like, this is his nickname. So B becomes like a separate variable, but it's pointing to the same thing, the same object that Y is pointing to. Did you see the difference here? When I use that ampersand, so that variable becomes an alias, which means it's like I created another variable, but still pointing to the same thing. Now, when I don't put that ampersand, they're totally different variable. I can copy the value. So here, what happened here, so when I call the function fun, I get the value x, the value of x, which is 10. I give it to A, but it's not going to affect any transaction, any operation. It's not going to affect the original variable x. So now I added 5 to A, it becomes 15, but I did not change the variable x. X is still 10. But look for B, because I added that ampersand. So now B becomes an alias, just like the wife account, highest account. So they were separate. Once I added that ampersand, they point to the same account. That means they share the same account. So whatever, it doesn't matter who's making deposits, who's making the withdrawal, it's going to affect both of them. It does not really matter. It's like they share the same account. It doesn't matter. You may have two different, credit card or debit card, but it doesn't matter who is using it. We have only one account. It will be affected. You can use the wife's, debit card or the husband debit card. We are talking about the same object. Is that clear? Because this is okay. This is just because we're not gonna, as I said, deep about this. But I'm just saying, if you see this ampersand, at least you know what it means. Okay, so whenever you talk about reference, that's what it means. Every time you put that reference, that means we are using an alias. That's the term they use, alias, A-L-I-A-S. That means it's a variable, but it's still pointing to the same object that the original variable is pointing to. So any one of them, it doesn't matter which variable do you use, it will affect it. Okay, so that's what it means. Okay, is that clear? Do you want me to explain a little bit more about this? Because at this point, that's all what you need to know. You don't have to go deep more than this. Any questions? Edgar, do you have any questions?
No, no questions.
Okay, perfect. If you thought about any questions or something does not make sense, just let me know. Okay, now we'll be talking about a vector. What is a vector? Vector is very similar to array. Remember we talked about array? It's very similar. The only difference, or the main difference, is the vector is more flexible. You can shrink the array, you can expand it to have more spaces, you can use some function that makes it easy to manipulate. But as far as the data structure is very similar to the array. So let me start with the refresh your memory about what we talked about array. So array is just a data structure that hold multiple values. Remember we talked about this, like for example, you put int, and then you put the square brackets, and then you give a name, let's say scores. Okay, and then you specify, I think you put this one. Yeah, you put this one later, and you specify how many. Let's say when I put 5, that means I'm going to come up with 5 values about scores. And then you can just mention them. Okay, let's say 50 here, 80, okay, 85. And then I have two more, right? 90 and 100. That's all it is. So this is an array. So it's like you, instead of having a separate variable for each value, we just put them together into one single variable called scores. And then to access them individually, we just have to use the index. So for example, if we want to access the first one, I just have to put scores, square brackets, 0. That means I'm just like the array, if you remember. Just like the string. So here, that's going to print the first one. Score 0, that means 50. Okay, if you want to calculate the total of all of them or the average, I can use, okay, let me come up with the variable here, sum equals 0, and then I can use the for loop, and then I'm going to use the for each loop. So for every S is the variable that's going to replace every single value in the array, and then you put colon like this. I have the choice. I can use the normal one that probably you are familiar with is this. When you put I equals 0, I less than 5, and then you put I plus plus. This is called the traditional loop, because there are two ways to access the elements of an array. And then you put sum plus equal scores I. That means add every single element. Add the first one. Scores 0 plus scores 1 plus 2 plus 3. So that's going to give me the total. And then at the end, I can print the average by dividing the total. So I can put the average is, and then I get the sum and divide it by 5. So that's going to give me the average. So as you can see, this is how we work with the array. Okay, that's 81 is the average. Or I can use a different way, which is I'm going to put s int, come up with a variable name, anything, s, and you put colon, and then you put the name of the array. And then you add that variable, because that variable s represents or replaces every value of our array. So I'm going to put s, and then you're going to get the same thing. So it doesn't matter if you like the first approach, you can use it. See, I got the same thing, 81, regardless which way I go. It's just two different ways of using the loop. The first one is called traditional loop. The second one is called the for each loop or enhanced loop. So we talked about this. This is an array. Now, what does vector have to do with this? Now, the problem with this array is I cannot extend this. That means if I have 5, then I cannot add more element to it. Like, let's say I have only 5 students, I create an array. What about if I got 2 more students? The office, they send me an email, they say, okay, you're gonna receive 2 new students. They have to take your class because they're gonna graduate this year. So in this case, I'm stuck. I cannot use this array. I cannot expand this. I cannot make it longer. Okay, and also you cannot make it, you cannot shrink it. So that's where the vector comes into play. Vector solve this problem of shrinking or expanding an array to have more space. And also it has some function that makes it easy to manipulate. So how does it work? The first thing you need to include the vector. I know sometimes we include some resources here, some files. So the same thing for vector, you have to include vector. So this will give us access to all the tools and the functions that the vector has. So I'm going to do the same thing. Look, it's going to be a different, it's just different notation, but it's the same principle. So I can put here, I can put vector, see, vector, and then I put the type here inside the brackets, and then you give the name scores. See? So that's one way. That's one way of working with vector. See? I put vector. Inside the brackets, you put int or double or string, whatever the type is. And you put the name of the vector, and then you put the list of the values if you have them. And then if you want to access them, I can put for int v. See, I use the same way. Scores, and then print. See out. Print. We use the same thing just like array. We use that square brackets. Or you can use at. So sorry, score. I'm sorry. Here I use the enhanced loop, so I'm gonna put v. So that means print every element. So if I run the program now, it's going to print every value. See that? I just did not leave a space. That's why they all come together. Okay. So it's very, very, very much close, similar to array. So that's one way if you have the values. So sometimes you don't have the values. So I'm going to put that comment here to show you the different way of creating a vector. Now, what about if I don't have these values? I don't know what the values are. So you can create one vector, and then you put int, and you put, let's say, scores, and you put how many? Let's say 10 or 6, for example. So by default, they are 0. This means I created a space or a container that holds 6 values. Since I didn't assign the values, so by default it is 6. So let me copy this so we can print what's in there. So if I put this right here, see, and then I run the program, it's going to show me what? All of them 0, 0, because that's the default value, 0, 0, 0, 0. Now, I can also assign a specific value for them. Let's say I started a new worksheet. It's like participation or something. And I want to give everybody 100. I can do that. I can just put comma and put 100. So it's like I'm assigning this value to every single element. So that's an easy way, let's say, to have a completion grade assignment. You don't have to assign 100 to each one of them. That's going to take a long time. So this statement will assign 100 to everybody, or 80 to everybody, 90, whatever, or bonus, whatever you want to add. See? So that's the second way of creating a vector. Okay? If you didn't put the second value, it's going to give you 0. Okay? If you assign a value, so just put the value that you want to assign to everybody after comma here. Okay? So this is all the different ways. Other than this, everything is similar. But as I said, the main advantage, I can add more. Let's say I have here scores, and I want to add one more. That's fine. I'm going to put scores, and then I'm going to use the method called pushback. Pushback is another way to say add. Say I want to add another element, because so far I have 6, right? Let's say I want to add 4 more. I'm going to put here, but I'm going to give them only 70 because they did not do it on time. So I'm going to copy this. So automatically they will be added to the end, right? Because back basically that's the end. So I can add 4 more, like 4 more students. They did not turn in the work on time, so I give them 70. So now when I run the program, look right here, it's going to, okay, show me. Let me start new line here. So I'm going to put cout and line. All right, so now when I run the program, look, initially it was only 6 people. Let me see what happened here. So let's see. There we go. See that? So initially it was 6 students. Okay, they were assigned 100, and it added. So that's the main advantage of using vector. It allows, it's like there's more flexibility. I can add more, I can shrink it, I can have, so I have a lot of things. I can manipulate my vector. It's not like array. Array, once you choose a specific size, you cannot change it. Okay, and there's also another advantage that the array does not have. The array does not tell me how many elements I have. I cannot use, but for the vector I can. So for example, I can put, okay, how many elements I have? I can put system out print line. Okay, let me skip a line first. Cout and line. So if I want to show how many elements, I can use the function size or method size. So I'm going to do total number of elements of students, for example. And I'm going to put scores that size. I don't have that. The function size in array, I don't have that. It just does not have one. So this one, I know how many elements I have. So if I forgot or I made a lot of changes, I don't remember, because of the many changes, I removed some elements, I added few more. I don't keep track of the size. So this function will keep track of the size. See, it tells me that there are 10, 6 plus 4, that's 10 elements. Also, it tells me whether it's empty or not. Okay, so I can put, for example, here, Okay, let me just add and line. It can tell me whether the vector is empty, that there's nothing in there or not. So is the vector empty? So I have to use scores is empty or just empty. Empty right here, because you can see right here. So it's going to say yes or no, like 0 or 1. So if it says 1, that means true. It is empty. That means there is nothing. Of course, it's not empty here because we have 10 values in there. So it's going to say 0. Why? Because as you can see right, it says 0. That means it's false. It's not empty. So it says 1 only if there is nothing in there. Maybe you created the array, but you have nothing in there, okay? You haven't even started. So that's going to say yes. Or you are removing the elements until, so let's say you want to keep removing until there is no more. You can use this function for that. So that's basically what the vector is. What about, somebody may say, what about if I want to remove? Yes, you can. You're going to use the opposite of pushback, which is pop back. So that's when I put pop back automatically, that's going to eliminate or remove the last one in the list. So in my case, 70, the last 70 will be removed. So if I removed, let's say for some reason, this class is kind of a GT class, or, that's, so one of the restrictions, or if you get less than 75, you are in any assignment, you are automatically eliminated or you are kicked out of this class. So if I have this, so I'm gonna remove the last one. The last 4, say, will be eliminated. So now if I copy this again, it's going to show me only the students who got 100. Okay. So again, let me just make sure that it skips a line. So now if I run the program, you're going to see only the students who got 100. Did you see that? So that's something that we don't have in the array. That's the main reason we use this vector, because it's kind of more flexible, dynamic. You can call it a dynamic. An array is static. That means, okay, it's there. That's how much space. It's like a physical classroom. I think I can give this analogy. It's like the difference between a physical classroom, in which, like, let's say my classroom has only 22 computers. So I cannot have more than 22 students. So what happened if I have more? Then I have no choice but to move to another, computer lab, which is bigger, because I cannot just put, I cannot have more than 22. But if I have an online class, that's okay. I can add as many students. It's not going to affect anything. Why? Because that's an online class. It does not depend on the space. So you can look at it this way. So array is an example of a physical classroom that has a specific size and you cannot change it. Online classroom, you have flexibility. You can add more, you can shrink, no problem. The more students you add, the bigger the classroom, the more they drop the class, the less student number you have and stuff like that. So I think that's a good analogy between array and vector. And other than that, everything is the same. Like, for example, I can remember, like, I calculated the average. I can do the same thing in there. I can calculate. So sum equals 0, exactly the same way I did for array. So I'm going to go for int v scores and then calculate sum plus equal v. And then if you want to calculate the average, so the average score it's pretty much the same, like the way you manipulate. So sum divide, now I know the size, so I can put scores that size. See that? So it is much easier to work with. So again, let me skip that line so we don't have. Okay, so now we're for run the program. Of course, since all of them are 100, you're going to get 100 as the average, but it's pretty much the same way you manipulate that. Okay, any questions about the vector? So remember that, yes.
So you know how like you can add like layers to an array? Like you can have
Yeah.
a 2D array. Can you do the same thing with vectors?
Well, what do you mean add what layers?
Yeah, like a 2D array. Like can you do that
Oh,
with
okay. Oh, that's a very good question. No, actually, we are okay. Since it accepts objects, yes, it's not. It's outside the scope of the class. But to answer your question, since an array is an object, so we can have vector of arrays. We can do that. So you can have, yes, you can have as many. So as I said, it's outside the scope. But to answer your question, yes. Why? Because any object, since array or vector is an object, yes, you can have a vector of arrays or vectors. Yes, you can have different layers. All right.
Okay.
So as I said, you need to remember that you have to include the vector file. All right. Just like string, and other files. If you don't include them, then it may not work properly. And then remember how we declare them, because that's the question you may get. If you get any questions in the final, it's going to be up to 3 questions. All the stuff that we're going to learn today, you're going to get up to 3 questions, especially how to initialize a vector, how to create one like this. So I showed you like different ways, right? If you already have the values, you're going to use this way, right? You put vector, and then you put that brackets, and then you put the type, the data type inside, and the name of the vector, and then you put the the braces, and then just like array. And then if you want to assign the same value, you're going to use this notation. Okay. If you want to create one, just to want to say the value, just to specify the size, but without assigning value. So by default, you're going to get zeros. To add elements, you put push back. To eliminate, you put a pop back. Okay. But other than this, to access the elements, to manipulate, it's pretty much the same thing as we learned in the array. Right. So it's very important that you know this, just in case you get questioned. But basically, we're just going to touch the service. As I said, we're not going to give more than that. We just got, kind of introducing the topic, because especially if you are taking the second class, they may assume that you already at least know the basics. Okay, so if the concept vector is mentioned, at least you have an idea about what the concept is about. Okay, so we talked about references, we talked about vector. Now I'm going to end with a 2D array. You mentioned 2D array. 2D array is just like an array of arrays. Okay, so let me delete this so I have more space. But if you have no problem with arrays, you should have no problem with 2D array. Okay, so how do we create? So we don't need this for 2D array. How we create a 2D array? So just like an array, but we use 2 brackets. So we use int, right? If it is the data type is integer. And then we put the name of an array, let's say grades, for example. And then we use 2 of them, one for the number of rows. Let's say I have 3 classes, okay? I have 3 classes. I'm going to keep track of their grade. So I say I have 3 classes. I'm going to put 3 classes. And then each class, assuming they have the same number. Let's say I have 4 students for each class, just for the sake of, just to make it easy. So this will create a 2D array, 3 rows, 4 columns. I wanted to visualize, to picture a classroom that has 3 rows and 4 students for every row. That's basically what it is. Now, if you want to assign values to them, use the braces. And inside the braces, since it's an array of array, you're going to put array inside. So that's the first one. And then you separate them with comma. So that's the second class. You need to have 3, right? We said there are 3 rows. So I'm going to put like this. And then I can put, we said that there are 4 each, right? So let's say the first class, my first class, like in the morning. Okay, this is the grade that the students got. 60, 80, 70, and then 90. Okay. And then the second one is 50, 85, 92, and then 64. And then finally the third class, 75, 67, 98, and 69. Now, even though this is the way it's supposed to be, but to make it easy for yourself, most programmers, they're gonna put them on top of each other. It's like a classroom. So instead of like having them in one line, the best way is to put them like this, because it's much easier. Because this way you know how many rows you have, how many columns you have. It's much easier to deal with. So always put them like this. That's an advice, okay? So you don't have to. If you feel comfortable having them on one line, you can do that. Because here it tells me how many rows, 3 rows, and how many columns, 4. Okay? So for example, if I want to say, okay, grades 1, 2, what value do I have here? What do you think I'm going to be? Which value I'm accessing? Grades 1, 2. Huh?
85?
85. Remember, the first one is 0.
Oh,
So it should be 92, right?
yeah.
Okay, you got this, the right row, which is the second one, because the first one is 0. Second one is 1. But within the second row, 2 is the third one. So 0, 1, 2, it's 92. I know it's a very common mistake or common error, because as a human being, we always start with 1. It's just very hard for us to accept the fact that we need to start from 0. This problem is so common that even programmers, they come up with a name for it. It's called off by 1 error. So if you search Google OBO, you're going to see that it is off by 1 error. That means it's common mistake. Usually, if you miss something like 0, you're going to say 1, or 1, you're going to get 0, or 9, you're going to sit 8. So you always miss it by 1. It's so common. Now, what about this? Let me just copy. So what about if I say 2 and then 3? What number is this? What value? Okay, it's 2, 3, not 12. So what number is this?
Well, won't it isn't there supposed to be like an end bracket on the 2?
Oh yeah, that's just a typo. Thank you. Yeah, so what number is
It will be 69.
69? 0, 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Okay, now that's how we access this. Okay, perfect. Now let's start with the first thing that we need to do. Now we know how to create a 2D array, right? Now, how do we access all the elements? Let's say I want to calculate the average of all the classes combined. I have 3 classes. I don't want to know the average for each class. I want to see the average for all the classes combined. So I'm going to do the same thing, but that I'm using for array, but I'm going to use nested loop. Okay, that's the only difference. For one array, we use one loop. For the second one, for the 2D array, we use nested loop. Why? Because you need a variable to keep track of how many rows you have, and another variable to keep track of how many columns you have. So I need a variable, right? Sum. And let me put it as double. So when I divide, I don't have that problem. Remember, like when you divide integer by integer, you get integer. So I'm going to put double to avoid that problem. So now I'm going to use the for loop, right? So for the first one, I'm going to put from 0 all the way to 3, right? To 3, I plus plus, which is 0, 1, 2, 3 rows. And then within, look, within, make sure you use the braces to avoid any problem. Within every row, I need to visit every single value. Like within the first row, I have to visit 60, 80, 79. So I need another loop to go horizontally, because the first one is going to go vertically, right? The row 0, the row 1, the row 2. Okay, the second loop will go horizontally. That means within the same row, visit every grade, every single grade. So here I'm going to put a different variable, 0, and I'm going to put here 4, right? 0, 1, 2, 3. I have 4 values. And I'm going to put j plus plus. And then I'm going to add sum plus equal what? The name of the 2D array, which is grades, and then you have to use 2 brackets. 1 for the row number, for the row value, that's I, and this is J. So that's it. So it's the same thing. We just have to use 2 instead of 1 index. And then make sure that outside the loop, both of them, then I can put the total, for example. The total of grades is, before I calculate the average, so I'm going to put sum. And then underline. So as I said, you don't have to stress about this because I said maximum all the stuff that we're going to learn today, you have only up to 3 questions, maybe like 1 of each. That's it. That means I'm going to give you like the very basic, like for the references, I'm going to give you the same example, very similar to the example I gave you, to show you like whether, you know, whether the variables are pointing to the same object or different object. Does it affect the first variable or not? For the vector, make sure you know how to create a vector, okay, on different ways, okay? And this one right here, something similar, like how to access a specific value in the 2D array. So it's going to be just the basic things. So you don't even have to stress about that. And then the last one, the average grade is, so before okay, let me put this one, let me wait for this. So the sum is easy, right? So it's going to add all the values. So I got 900. Oh, by accident, it's 900 exactly, even though I didn't mean to have 900, but it did. So I have 900. If you add them up, you get 900. Okay. Now, how can I get the average? Do you guys have any idea how to find the average? Because to find the average, I have to divide by what? By the number of students I have, or the number of grades. How can I keep track of how many grades or how many students I have? Do you have any idea how can I do that?
You could use like a for loop to go through like each spot in the array and
Another loop besides this? How about take advantage of the loop that I have?
Yeah, you could do that.
And then to do what? You are close.
You could put like an if statement to see if there's like a valid.
Why do you have to have statement? How about create a variable that keep track how many grades you have? That's a variable, like for example, you are close, so count equals 0, and then I keep incrementing every time I calculate this. I'm going to put count plus plus. How easy is that? So count plus plus, basically it adds. Every time I add a grade, it will add 1 to the variable count. So by the time I finish all of them, that's going to give me the value or the number of students I have. So, and then I can just divide by count. So that's the easy way. So I know what you mean. You're trying to, okay, create another one, but why do you have, I already have one. I'm just going to take advantage of the one I already have. So I'm just going to put here sum divide by count. That's going to give me the average. So I'm going to divide 900 by whatever the number is. It looks like 12, right? So I got 75, which is pretty much, reasonable, because I have some grades that are higher. I have some failing grades. So 75, I'm not sure if it's exactly the same, but I don't see any reason why I should doubt. Sometimes like you may see like a very kind of strange answer. You can tell that there is something wrong. If you got like 120, how is that possible? 120, you can even have 120 as a grade. So that means there is something wrong. But 75 is, it's about right. Okay, it's about right. Okay, so that's how we calculate the average. You see? So let's say, for example, I want to know how many people pass the class. How many people pass the class? So I'm gonna need another variable. Let's say I'm gonna call it passing. A variable. And then I can take advantage of the same loop. Look right here. The same, because I don't want to create this again. So I'm going to go right here and then use an if statement. If, see, so I'm going to delete this. I don't need it. And then I'm going to put, what do you think I put? If what? If something higher or equal than 70, because that's what passing means. Then I'm gonna increment passing plus plus. What do you think I should put here? That I want to compare it to 70 to check if it is higher or equal than 70 or not. What should I put?
You put the array at I, or no, wait, at
Put what? We used it before. Just look up. Look up at the code above it.
at grades IJ.
You got them. See? IJ, that's it. I and J. That's it. Because you need two values, one for the number, the row number, and then because every student is defined by which row does he belong to, and then which column. That's how we can tell where the student is located. See? So and then at the end, always don't answer here, because if you put here system out print, if you try to print the value of passing here, you are not even finished yet. So you have to make sure that you are outside both loops. Then you can say the number of passing students is, and then you put passing. See that? So if I run the program, how many? Okay, we have 7 people. Is that possible? It says 7 people. Okay, let's count them. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, that's true. I was like, what? How is this possible? But it's correct. 7 people. All right. Okay, let's assume, okay, let's say, you know that there is a student who got 69. That's very close. Let's say that student, he came to Mr. E or his teacher. I said, okay, Mr. E, I got 69. I really, really want to pass this class. I did work very hard. And then is there anything I can do? Like, extra credits, whatever I can do to, can bump my grade up. So how can I do that? So I want the program to check any student, but to be fair, because as a teacher, I cannot just bump his grade up, But what about if there is another student who got 69? So I want to be fair to everybody. I'm going to check. Anybody who gets 69, I will change his grade to 70, not only this student. So that's why I'm going to use the program, the nested loop. So I'm going to copy this. Look, I'm going to copy this to show you this is how we access, how we traverse the entire to the array. We use the nested loop. It's almost the same thing all over. You just change the, the inside. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to check if grade I is equal to 69, because that's going to check every single grade. So what am I supposed to do if it's 69? How can I change it? What do you think? I want to change it to 70. So how can I do that?
Are we using the ampersand?
It's already there. The if statement, if grades I, J equals to 69, if the grade is 69, change it to 70. How can I change it to 70? What shall I put? What statement should I put? Grades, what? I, J, then what? You want to change it to 70, so what should you do? You assign it 70. So you put equals 70. That's it. That's how simple it is. So remember, the first one has 2 equal sign because you are checking. You are testing. Every time you are testing and the answer has to be true or false, you put 2 equal sign. If you are just assigning the value, then you put only 1 equal sign. Did you see the difference? Every time, usually when you put a double equal sign, if you after F statements, because you are not sure is it true or false. But when you put 1 equal sign, you are assigning the value. You are assigning a value to a variable. See, now I changed that 69 to 70. So now if I check, it will see that we have 8 students who passed, including the one who got 69, and his grade was bumped up. Okay, so as you can see, this is how we access them. Now let me ask you this: what about if I want to calculate the total of every class. The total of every class. I want to see what's the total. What do you think I should do? So let's do it together. So I'm going to put here, calculate, okay, the total of every class or row, because every class is a row, right? So I'm going to use again the same nested loop to show you. Now pay attention here, because what I'm going to say makes total sense, but if you pay attention. Okay. Now here, I have to calculate the sum, right? So I need a variable for sum, because that's what I'm trying to do. And that sum needs to change, right? Because if I calculate the sum of the first class, I have to change it back to 0 so I can calculate the sum for the second row, right? So which means, okay, inside right here, outside, like let's say, once I finish the first class, I'm going to change it back to 0. Does this make sense? Because if not, it's going to keep adding all the values. I don't want to add all the values. When I finish the first row, which is, for example, here, the first one, 60, 80, 70, 90, whatever the total is, I wanted to reset the sum to 0, right? So that means, because when I finish the inner loop, the loop that is inside, when I'm finished, I'm outside the inner loop, like when I'm here, that means I finished the first one. Now I'm going to start the second one, I equals 1, okay? So here, I'm sorry, here. So here, sum equals 0. So here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to calculate sum plus equal grades ij. So that's going to calculate the sum. But once you finish, it changes back to 0. But I want to print it first before I change it back to 0. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to print it first. See out the sum of this class. That means whatever class I'm class is, and I'm going to put sum before I change it to 0. So I'm going to say, let's say the first one is going to say 60, right? It's going to say 60 plus 80 plus 70 plus 90. I'm done with the first row, okay? Now it's going to go outside. It's going to exit the inner loop. And then you're going to find this. Okay, display the sum and then change to 0. Why? Because I want to start a new sum, because that's a different class. Does this make sense? Does this make sense to you?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the reason.
Yes.
Because what's going to happen if I don't do this? What do you think is going to happen if I don't do this?
It'll add all the classes together.
Yeah, it's going to add all of it. Is that what you want? You want to add all? I don't want to add all the classes. I want to add only the grades for that specific class. That's why I have to reset to 0 so I can start over. So that's the reason. Now it's underlined because I used sum before, right? So I think it's somewhere I'm using sum. So let me use another variable. Why? Because I used this variable before. So I'm going to put total. And yeah, call it total. Okay. Now pay attention to this, because the program that you have, I don't think I give you the program. No, I thought that's for a different class. I didn't give you this. Okay, total equals 0. Okay, now if I print, let me use the just start new line. Okay, now let me run the program and see. Okay, let me see if there is anything. Yeah, let me start new line so there is no confusion. Okay, so if I run the program, let's see if I'm gonna get the do you see that? So the first one 1200, second one 1491. If I want the average, I can do that. I can just have to add the same way I did for the total. So I'm gonna put, let's say, this variable C. C is the one that's gonna count how many students I have for each class. So this one will give me what? C++. And again, once I finish for each class, what am I supposed to do? If I'm finished with the class, what should happen to C?
C equals 0.
0, because you want to start over. Whatever I did with the total, we'll do it with C. So now it's going to give me the average. So I'm going to put here, instead of having the sum, I'm going to put the average grade of this class is sum divided by C. So that's okay. Oh, I have to be careful here because I have to put, did you see the mistake I made? Who can spot the mistake I made? I made a mistake here, an error, unintentionally. And I'm glad I made that mistake because I want to test your understanding. So I did a mistake. It's like I put the wrong order. The code is correct. I just put it in the wrong place.
You
Who
you
can spot that?
made C equal to 0 and then divided.
Yeah, you have to put it after, right?
Yeah.
So I'm supposed to put this after because otherwise it's going to divide by 0. So make sure that you put this after this. Okay, so now let's run the program. You're going to see that I have the average for each class. See that? So I have, let me see, is that correct? Something is wrong. So what did I miss? I put sum. Oh, sum, because I'm using the total now. See that? Sometimes you mess up if you don't pay attention. Because remember, sum, I used it before, not for this one. So I used the wrong variable. So it's easy to mix up stuff. So now it's going to give me the average. Let me make sure you can get this one correct. So does this make sense? 75, 72, I think it's about right. 77. Okay, some grades are higher, others are a little bit lower, so that's what you get. Okay, so now you understand how you access them like horizontally for each row, how you calculate the average for each class, how you traverse the entire to the array. So this kind of things. Okay. Okay, any questions? I think this one we went over because I was not supposed to go as far as this because all what you need to do is basically just to cover, just to touch the surface. But I'm glad we covered this one, so at least you have a good understanding of the 2D array. So any questions about this? Do you know how to declare an 2D array? How to initialize it with values? How to access individual elements? How do you basically calculate the sum of all the values, how to access all the values, how to search for specific values, whatever criteria you have, how to change values like based on a specific condition, how do you calculate the total average for each row, so this kind of things. Okay, so now we covered the 3 items that I mentioned at the beginning. So now let's go over some of the questions in the review in case. Some easy questions, I'm just going to skip them. I'm just going to go over some of the questions that you may have. I allow you to have access to the answers. If you don't have access to the answers, I can give you, I think I put a 3 attempt. But I can put it unlimited. You can try as many times. So let me stop this. And then let me see if I can
Mr. E, I had a question really quick.
Yes, go ahead.
So for the code that we use to change the 69 to 70,
yes,
I'm still getting 7 students, even though it's supposed to be an 8.
Yeah, but this one was before. Look at the order.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
we did not change it until after. So if you want it to be reflected, you have to get the code that changed it to 70 and put it before that statement, before that that's a segment of code.
Gotcha.
Because the
Okay.
order matters.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's the reason. That's a good question. All right, so let me see. Okay, let me access that review. Okay, I think it's this one. Let me see. Quiz, and then I go to the final. All right. Okay, this is the questions. So let me share my screen first. So this is the review. So as I said, we're just going to focus on the questions that you may have a problem with. Which of the following lines correctly defines an integer variable? So as you can see, which of the following lines? So you have to mention the data type first: integer, double, char, string, and then the name of the variable. Then if you have a value that you assign to it, you put that. So the first one is the correct one, because in the second answer, there is no data type mentioned. In the third case, there is no name for the variable. And the last one, there is a semicolon missing. Okay. Every function must have what? An open and close what? Open and close what?
Bracket.
Brace. Remember the curly one? Because brackets, we don't use it for to start a function and end. We use that letter brace, that the curly one. The bracket, we use it for the array. The array to specify the size, or the vector to specify the size of the array. Which of the following is the new line character? Sometimes we use and else, sometimes we use what? Backslash n. N stands for a new line. As it said, okay, so let's see this question. Okay, what's the output for this one? So we have two functions, one called 1, one called 2. The function 2, you just print 2. And then for function 1, you do two things. You type, or you print, or you display 1, and then you call the function 2. So basically you print 1, 2. Okay? So look at the main function. I called 1, so that's going to print 1, 2. And then I called the function 2, that's going to print 2. So you're going to end up having 1, 2, 2. Everybody got this? Because every time you call the function 1, two things will happen. It will print 1 and then automatically call the function 2. But when you call the function 2, only one thing happens, which is 2. So since I called the function 1 and 2, so I'm going to print 1, 2 for function 1 and 2 for function 2. Everybody got this? Say there are two things for the function 1. Two things will happen. You print 1, and this one will take you back to the first one, to the first function, this one. So this means when I call the function 1, it will print 1, 2. If I call function 2, only one thing happens, which is 2. All right, let's see. So as I said, we don't have time to go over all of them. So let's say this one, I think that's the same one we just did, right? Yeah, that's the same one we just did. Okay, see, do you guys remember floor sale? Floor, basically you round it down. Just remember that. Floor will round it down. That means from 6.5 to 6. And seal will round it up. So 7.5 will become 8. And then the square, everybody know the square root. It's 81 becomes 9. So the answer would be 6, 8, 9. So floor, round it down. Seal will round it up. SQRT stands for the square roots. Okay, as I said, okay, let's see this one right here. Okay, this code basically is going to prompt the user to enter the base and height of a triangle, and then it will calculate the area of the triangle. So the area of the triangle is 1/2 times base times height. So if the user enter, when you run the program and the user enters 6 and 10 for the base and height respectively, what do you think you're going to get as an answer? So the answer says 0. Why? Who can explain to me why you got 0? Even though 6 times 10 is 60, times 1/2 is 30. We're supposed to have 30. So why you got only 0? Any explanation for this? This is called logical error. Okay? Like when you make a mistake that you don't pay attention to. So the formula is correct, but there is something that is unintended. Why do you think we got 0, not 30?
Because that 1/2 would make the whole like calculation equal to 0.
Exactly. Because remember, integer over integer is what? Is an integer. So when you divide 1 and 2, the computer will give you only 0, only the integer part of it. To avoid that problem, we have many options. You can change 1 to 1.0, or you can change 2 to 2.0, or you can put double inside the parentheses in front of either 1 or 2. So somehow you need to change one of them to double. So that's why we get this. So pay attention to this kind of logical errors. Okay, so this is something about the loop. We're gonna choose one of them. So what do you think? Why we got 3 here? Because when a equals 0, CNT will be 1, because you incremented from 0 to 1. When we are going by 4, right? So when a equals 4, CNT will be 2. And then when a equals 8, CNT will be 3. So for every 4, you add 1 to CNT. So a will change from 0, 4, 8. So 3 times. So 3 times CNT has to be incremented by 1. So that's going to give you 3. Now after 8, I have 12. 12 is not less than 10. Okay. Okay, let's see. This is the same thing. Number 8 is a loop, very similar to the one we had. So we're going to go to question number 9. Okay, so this is an array that has 6 elements. And then we made some changes. Like the first one, what do you think the first one, this one will get me? Array of what? Array is the name of the array. So array 0 will be 7. 7 divided by 2 is 3. So basically I'm changing array 3 to 15. What is array 3? 0, 1, 2, 3. That's where 11 is located. So I'm changing, based on this line, I'm changing 11. Let me write it down. So I'm changing this 11 to 15. Let me put it on top of it. Oh. So I'm going to put here 15. Okay. And then what else? For the second one, array 4. What is array 4? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what 4 is. 4 plus 1 is 5. So array 5 will be 9. What is array 5? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the last one. So this one will be 9. The last one will be 9. So it's not 3 anymore. Now what about the next one? Num, which is 6, divided by 2 is 3. 3 minus 1 is 2. Change it to 5. So that's what 10 is. Change it to 5. So this one will be 5. Okay, let me put this below it so there's no confusion. 5. Okay, and then the last one, array 1, where 8 is, change it to R0, which is 7 plus 4 is 11. So where 7 is, where 8 is, change it to 11, right? 7 plus 4. So this is 11. Okay. So now, what am I asking here? I'm asking array 2. So array 2 is 5. That's where 10 is. It's 5. So that's correct. Okay. Now there are 2 more questions that are the same thing, because I give 3 questions like this, depending which one. So one time I ask about array 2, one of them about array 4, or so different, but it's the same information, but it has more than 1 question. All right, everybody got this? So you have to be careful here. Make sure that you don't make mistake when you evaluate these expressions. All right. So let's move on. This is all the same, 10 and 11. So we're not going to waste time with it. So 12. Now let's go to 13. Which of the following statements prints Smith \exam1 \test.txt? So of course, we're talking here about escape sequences. To print backslash, you have to print 2 of them. Every 2 backslashes will give you 1. So that's why I have to print Smith. 2 backslashes will give me 1 when you print. And then another 2 after exam1. Then that's it. .txt stays the same. So this one. So this has to do with the escape sequences. All right. So this is just like a general type of questions. Programming style is important. Style, that means the way you type a program, like how do you organize your code, how to make it readable, how to make it, easy to understand, not confusing. So good programming style makes the program more readable. Yes, you can put the entire program in 1 line, but is this something easily readable by the programmer? No, it's complicated. But when you put the if statements, you put the braces, and you indent it when you are supposed to indent it, and everything is organized, well structured, you are helping yourself and anybody who is looking at your program to make sense of what you are doing. So you make it more readable, and also when it's organized, it helps you find errors easily. But when you have everything, on top of each other, there is no organization, there is no structure, even finding the error must be very difficult. So both of them, it makes it readable, and also it helps you. It's not going to find, I mean, not automatically, but at least it helps you. It makes it easy for you. But a program may not compile. Has nothing to do with the style. It just helps you as a programmer. The program, does not care how you structure things. It follows certain logic, but it helps you. It has nothing to do with, finding error or compiling. The last one, can make a program run faster, has nothing to do with that. So it's just for you to make things organized, structured, so it's easy. Okay, this one right here, switch statement. We talk about switch, right? You need to have a break. If you don't have a break, then the program keeps going on. It does not stop. So here, since the character A, so it's going to stop after printing A, it would stop. Now imagine I don't have break. It's going to print A and B until it sees the first break, then it's going to stop. So without break, it's just going to keep going. It's going to keep printing. It's not going to stop. So here, since we have A, so it will print A regardless. When you put here, that means it doesn't matter if it's a lowercase or uppercase. So it will print them, and then it will stop automatically. All right. Let me know, guys, if you see any question, if you have any questions or something does not make sense, let me know, okay? The following code displays what? What do you think the program does? Value 1, value 2, max. If value 1 higher than value 2, max equals value 1. Else, max equals value 2. Max equals 0. Max value 1 to max. So max is max. So what do you think is going to print?
It's going to print 0.
Why do you think 0?
Oh, wait.
Because what is this function doing? It's compared the two
It's
values.
finding the highest value.
The highest. So what is the highest between 1 and 2?
2.
It will it will print 2. So it's gonna put max. It's gonna print because 2 is the highest one. Oh, 0. Why it's 0? We talked about this, right? Because when you put this max right here is a local variable here you are printing, and this max right here, that's a separate max. So here it's when you put max, it's still 0, it does not change. Remember, like we just learned it like a few minutes ago, like when we talked about references. So we said that this, it just copied the values, but it's not going to change the original value. Max is still 0. Because here it did compare them, but nothing was printed, right? But max was never changed. You never changed max in this code segment. You never changed it. You just borrow x. Okay, but this code will take place, but nothing will be printed. But you never change the value of max because that's why it's still 0. It did not change. Okay, what does forward slash do? 2 forward slashes is one of the ways you can make a comment. Okay, what is the other one? What is the other one to make a comment, especially if you have multiple line comments? How do we make a comment? I just used it like when I was typing, because you use 2 forward slashes if you have only 1 line comment. What about if I have 4 or 5 lines and I want to make it as a comment? What do I do? If you remember, I did it today.
Forward asterisk and then asterisk forward.
Perfect. Very good, Kendra. See, we start with forward slash asterisk, and then you wait until the end, and then you do the opposite. Okay? You put asterisk, forward slash. So anything in between will be considered as a comment. Okay, so let's see. Okay. What is the output of the following code segments? It's going to say, the answer, as you can see, 1 1 1 forever. Why do you think it's going to say 1 1 1? Even though I think it looks like the intention of the programmer is print 5 4 3 2 1. You see, 5, and then yeah. So what do you think happened? What is the first? What is the initial value? Is 1, right? Is 1 less or equal than 5? Yes. Then it's going to print 1. What's going to happen next? Remember that we don't have the braces. If you don't have the braces, only the first line is part of the loop. N++ is not. We talked about this. So it's going to stay 1 forever. Why? Because there is nothing that's going to change it to 2 or 3 to increment the variable. So until you get to 6, and then it will stop. So this shows you the importance of the braces. Without braces, only this part right here, let me show you. I'm not sure if you can. Yeah, only this is part of the loop. That's it. That means this n+1 is not part of the loop. How to make it part of the loop? By using the braces. You open the brace here, and then you close it here. Okay? So this question, just to show you the importance and the significance of the braces. Okay, so let's see here. This is about the loop. Let me see if there is anything. Let me use this one question. This type of arguments are passed to parameters automatically if no argument is provided in the function call. Is the default. So sometimes if I have a function and then I give it a value, I think we talked about this in class. So let's say, for example, you put x equals to 5 when you define your function. So when you put x equals 5, that means if I don't, when I call the function and I don't mention the first value, so the program will assign 5 by default. Okay? So So this is in case, but if you don't assign the default values, it will be an error. For example, let's say a function accepts 2 numbers, and then when you call the function, you came up only with 1 number. That's going to cause an error. The computer is going to say, okay, when you define the function, you said you're going to come up with x and y, integers. But when you call the function, you come up with only 1. What is the second one? So this will cause an error, except when you declare the function, you assigned a default value to one of them, or both of them. And you said, oh, if I don't give a value, use this instead, this number, 5, 10, whatever that number. So we call it the default value. All right, let's see this one. Okay, so consider the following code segments. We start with 15, while, as I said, the best translation for while is as long as value is less than 28. Increment, look here, the order is so important. You're going to increment before you print. That means you started with 15, but you are not going to print 15 because you are supposed to increment 15 to 16, then you print. So the first value to be printed will be 16, not 15. And then you're going to keep going until you get to the end. The last value you're going to compare is 27, right? 27, is it less than 28? Yes. What do? You add 1, so it becomes 28. Then you print. So you're going to end up printing 16 and 28. 16 is the first number, and 28. So this question shows you the importance of the order. Now I want you to imagine I switch these two lines. This line I put it first. You're going to get a different answer. You're going to get 15, 27 as answer because you are printing then incrementing. Okay, so just be careful about this type of questions. The order matters. All right, so let's see. I'm just picking like different questions, so this way I cover as much topic as possible. So here, when you create an array for the first time, we said by default you get 0, 0, 0. So when you created an array of 7, that means you have 0, 0, 0, 7 times. And it looks like you are calculating the total, okay? Now, you have 0, 0, and then you change the values. Every element will be assigned, I is the index, and then you multiply by 2. That means the first element will be 0 times 2, that's 0. The second one, 1 times 2, 2. So the second element is 2. And then 2 times 2, 4. So the third element will be 4. And then 6, then 8. So the last one will be 6 times 2, which is 12. And then when you add them up, you get 42. So remember, this first line, all what you have is 0, 0, 0, 0. Now the loop and this code will change the values from 0 to these values. You multiply the index. Index is the location of the elements by 2. 0 times 2, 1 times 2, 2 times 2, 3 times 2, 4 times 2, 6 times 2, and then you add them up. So that's why you got 42. All right, let's see. Consider the following. Okay, let's look at this. Okay, what do you think here? We have an array, we assign some values. So here we are using the loop. We are saying that if the first element is greater than the next element, how do I know this is the next? K plus 1, that means the one that comes after. So let's start with the first one. Is 7 higher than 2, greater than 2? Yes. So what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to print K, which is the index of 7, which is 0, and then RK, which is the number itself, which is 7. So I'm going to print 0, which is the index, and 7, the elements. Now move on to the second one. So the first one is 0, 7. So based on the answers, only A and B could be the answer. Now let me compare the second and the third. Is 2 higher than 5? No, nothing will happen. Now I'm right here with 5 is. Is 5 higher than 3? Yes. What is the index of 5? 0, 1, 2. So I'm going to print 2 and the value of 5. So it looks still they're the same. So I'm still not sure which one is the right answer because both of them have true 5. So let's go to 3 and 0. Is 3 higher than 0? Yes. What is the index of 3? 0, 1, 2, 3. So the index is 3 and the number is 3. So 3, 3 is the answer. All right, let's move on. We're almost there. To access an array elements, like specific elements in the array, use the array name and what else? The elements what? The subscript, which is basically the index, okay? So for example, if I want to access the first one, I have to say grade 0. If I want to access the second one, grade 1. I have to specify the subscript or the index. All right, let's say an array can store a group of values, but the values must be what? They cannot be of different type. That's why you have to specify. Is it int? Is it string? Is it double? Is it character? Is it this? Is it that? So they have to be the same data type. Number 32, to assign the content of one array to another, you must use what? Basically, I have two arrays. I want to copy the values from one array to the other. I have no choice but to use the loop. Okay, you cannot just assign them in one statement. You have to assign them using the loop. So I have to put the for loop and then assign the value from one to the other. Because if you use the equal sign, it means something else. Because if you put, let's say we have two arrays, okay? Array 1, array 2. Array 1 has some grades, has some values, and array 2 is empty. And I want to copy the values from one to the other. If I just put equal, like array 2 equals array 1, it's like I'm creating that reference that I talk about. That's when you point to the same object. It's like I created a second variable. I called it array 2, but I'm still pointing to the same array. That means it doesn't really matter which one I'm using, which variable I'm using. I'm talking about the same array. So I did not create a second array. I just created the second variable to point to the same object. So to create a second array and copy the value, you have to use the loop and then do it individually. And the last question. So let's see here. It says, after the following code execute, what is the value of my value? So if the user, let's assume that the user enters 0 as my value. So this is an if statement, right? So you check the first one. Is 0 higher than 5? No. So let's move on to else if. Is 0 higher than 2? No. So what do you have left? Else. Else means anything that's not mentioned above. Okay? So else has to be that. So my value was 0 plus 15 will be 15. So that's what you have. Okay, so that's pretty much the type of question you're gonna get. And as I mentioned, I think I gave only 3 questions about what we talked about today. So if you go over this, it's going to this meeting will be recorded. So just go over it again. It's only about the basic things: how to create a vector, how to create a 2D array, and then the concept of references. You know, the ampersand we talked about. So just use the example I mentioned. You should be fine. Okay. Any questions? Thank you for your patience. I mean, okay, so for everybody who attended the meeting, the class, do you guys have any questions for me? Any concerns? Any thoughts?
None. I'm good. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, no problem. Please do me a favor. I want you to double check your assignment to make sure all the assignments, because I have a very limited time to submit the grades to the office. So please double check if you are missing any assignment or something is not completed or anything. Please take care of it. I'm talking to the entire class, not only to the people who are here. Okay, everybody. I'm gonna send out also another announcement. Please make sure. I see some people are still missing assignment, and I don't have too much time. Okay, I have because if you wait until the last minute, I may not have time to go over the programs and the quizzes that you have. I need to get like a reasonable amount of time so I can get to grade it. Okay, so please, this is for everybody, for the entire class. Please make sure you check if there is any assignment to be completed. Please do so as soon as possible. All right, so thank you so much for your time. As I said, this meeting will be recorded and posted in the site in case like you want to take your time and watch it. All right, so thank you so much. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.